It is a medical, statistical fact that in Europe, 94% of Caucasians are still to this day born with tails.
I wanted to talk about this thing called the Hoteps. It's been getting a lot of attention lately, and there's kind of a bit of a raging conversation on quote-unquote Black Twitter. Hoteps are basically a pseudo-intellectual, pseudo-historians, conspiracy theorists, pseudo-nationalists. I mean, a lot of pseudo-everything. What they are definitely is just a bunch of misogynist, homophobic, anti-Semitic assholes who pass themselves off as intellectuals or thought leaders within the Black community. We also call them Ankh-Negroes. We tend not to use the term Negro. You can kind of guess what term we do use. Hoteps are basically known for being super Afrocentric but also really having a fascination, if not a total fetish, for ancient Egypt. They name themselves after Egyptian gods like Osiris or Amun-Hotep.
My full title is Heru, Ankh-Ra Samaj Sepetah. I'm the keeper and the elder guide of the shrine of Ptah.
So the term Hotep was created by Dr. Carr of Howard University, and he kind of created this sort of Afrocentric philosophy which centered Black people as being like kings, queens, having like our own cultural traditions that extend beyond either the Islamic influence within Africa or the Christian influence of an African American theology. He tried to create like this own intellectual tradition, thought within Africana. It's like a way for us to connect with the diaspora.
And with your life, you must in fact leave a record for those who come after you. You must become a scribe. A sesh after me, sesh. Sesh means to scribe, to leave an inscribed record of your discoveries. Well, here are some Howard students and faculty. Love going to the Nile Valley. There again, where Louis Armstrong was in the shadow of the Horemheb, the Sphinx. And there we are, love to go because you're there on a journey of recovery. There's a Howard student staring up, looking at Ramesses II presenting justice in the form of Ma'at to his wife Nefertari in the temple at Abu Simbel, not too far from the border of the Sudan, now northern Sudan. This child just looking up like, wow. Looking at herself, really. That's her great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother, long before boat rides, long before cotton fields and sugarcane fields. These are the ancestors speaking to each other. And she can read what's on those walls as she presents justice to his woman.
Why is there such a struggle to remove Black people from their history?
Oh, well, I think that's fairly straightforward. When you remove people from their memory, you can implant what you need them to do in their minds. The deliberate attempt to separate Black people from their memory, which isn't just an American phenomenon, is what the great Kenyan writer Ngugi wa Thiong'o calls dismemberment. He says the dismemberment of Africa took place in two stages. One was the physical separation of Africans from the continent, and the other one, which he said is enduring and continues, is the deliberate separation of memory from the Black subject. So we're not supposed to think about Africa. We're not supposed to think about any connection. However, we're not supposed to question when at a police funeral, a bunch of people show up in bagpipes. Why are y'all blowing bagpipes? Well, you know, this is a tradition that Irish. Yeah, but you're not Irish. Okay, so I'm gonna put this red, black, and red. What are y'all making up that Black history again? Wait a minute.
It's just a remix, if you will, of Afrocentricity and Black nationalism, which rose into national prominence, particularly with the advent of Pan-Africanism, advanced by leaders such as W.E.B. Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, which also then found itself in Nation of Islam under the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then of course advanced with Malcolm X before he left in '64.
The same slave master who owned us put his last name on us to denote that we were his property. So that when you see a Negro today who's named Johnson, if you go back in his history, you'll find that he was once his grandfather or one of his forefathers was owned by a white man who was named Johnson. If his name is Bunch, his grandfather was owned by a white man that was named Bunch.
Would you mind telling me what your father's last name was?
My father didn't know his last name. My father got his last name from his grandfather, and his grandfather got it from his grandfather, who got it from the slave master. The real names of our people were destroyed during slavery.
Was there any line any point in the genealogy of your family when you did have to use the last name? And if so, what was it?
The last name of my forefathers was taken from them when they were brought to America and made slaves. And then the name of the slave master was given, which we refuse. We reject that name today.
You mean you won't even tell me what your father's supposed last name was or gifted last name was?
I never acknowledge it whatsoever.
It's been part of our community for a minute. Everybody within our community knows it. Maybe they don't know the exact origins of it.
Professor Josef Ben-Jacquinen is an Egyptologist, having taught at Cornell University for over 15 years. Dr. Ben, as he is affectionately known, has lectured widely on both sides of the Atlantic. His theme, the ancient civilizations of Egypt. His presentations have placed him in great demand by students and community groups, especially those of African descent. Perhaps the high regard he enjoys today stems from his long, unwavering theme that the ancient civilizations along the Nile were African.
It came from here. Whether you're Jewish, Christian, Muslim, or what, you got the basis of what your religion is here.
Dr. Ben completely fabricated his degrees, which he claimed he earned from universities such as Cambridge and the University of Puerto Rico. Because of his ability to fool his employers, he was hired to teach at City College in New York and Cornell University. His seminal work is a sort of Bible for the Hoteps, Black Man of the Nile and his family. His academic writing was never peer-reviewed, and his so-called ancient texts were never verified by established archaeologists. Also, his writing was tinged with all too obvious black supremacy.
The Greeks weren't around. Not one single Greek wasn't around when you were at the Grand Lodge of Luxor. Not a single Greek was allowed when you were at Saqqara. Not a single Greek was allowed when you were building the pyramids, the first stone structure. Not one. Not a Roman. There were no cracker at all around.
Dr. Leonard Jeffries is another professor at the City College of New York. The man who was at one point in charge of the Black Studies Department at the City College of New York actually got to teach students in his class that white people are ice people and that black people are from the sun.
When we make the contrast between African development in the sun and European development in the ice, the value system of caring and sharing that comes out of the sun, the value system of what I call the communal, cooperative, and collective development, as opposed to the value system of the ice. And I've given it that nomenclature because ice fits what I want to say is the value system. It's a crass individualism, taking care of me, even in neglect of your family, and a competitivism, an amoral competitivism for C. So you have I for individualism, C for competitivism, and E for exploitation, super exploitation, exploitation of by any means necessary. So it's this value system of ice which contrasts the value system of the sun, which becomes the important foundation for our understanding of human history.
They never learned to be scared. They never learned to hate. They never learned to harm people. If they wanted it, they prayed for it. And most of the time they didn't have to pray for it because it was already there. The sun people. They lived in harmony with nature, the sun people. They believed that men should be with women and women should be with men, the sun people. They had no concepts of feminism. They had no concepts of homosexuality. They had no concepts of anything that was anti-nature because the sun people were a nature-based people. But there was another group of people called ice people. They didn't have no damn sun. Truth be told, they ain't have no damn soap either.
The Hotep philosophy advanced by Dr. Carr is a continuation of that black nationalist tradition, except in a more Pan-African variety, and of course, utilizing imagery from ancient Egypt.
How many of y'all want to call this something else? Come on, level with me. You want to call it the what? Sphinx. Y'all, come on out with it. The Sphinx, a mythological creature that comes from Europe, that has wings, that will kill you if you don't know the riddle. Has nothing to do with Haru ibn Aketi. To master your animal domain, which is like the lion, to rise to your highest spiritual nature, which is the high priest. So now, if your son said, I want to be a Sphinx, or if he said, I want to be Haru ibn Aketi, which one would you sanction? Right, this is Dad or Mom. I want to protect our family and our culture from sunrise to sunset. And I want to be like Haru, the champion of the people. You see, that's why we can't let other people define our stuff.
Why are the Hoteps so obsessed with ancient Egypt, which they refer to as Kemet? It's for the same reason why almost everyone, including white people, are fascinated with the civilization. It is one of the earliest empires on record. They created magnificent structures, including the pyramids of Giza, and buried royals with entire tombs of treasures. As such, Egypt has embedded itself within the Western imagination. For black people particularly, a lot of us gravitated towards ancient Egypt because it was an advanced civilization within Africa. Now, there is this ongoing controversy or debate whether or not ancient Egyptians were black. While black people, as we understand us today, particularly Nubians from the south, were present in Egypt, no one really knows if they were the majority of the population. As such, there is very little evidence to say that the people inhabiting Egypt now weren't the same people who lived there before. Now, anyone who is familiar with the transatlantic slave trade or basic migration patterns within Africa will know that us Black Americans have very little lineage with ancient Egypt. We are from this place called West Africa. Our ancestors were largely Yoruba, with a minority in the Mandinka, Igbo, and Bantu ethnic groups. In fact, we share more culture and commonality with white Americans than we do with ancient Egyptians.
Looking for my Johnny. Yeah. Where is my Johnny? Johnny boy. Do you know Johnny? Question. If I know see my Johnny, Johnny show. Looking for my Johnny. I'm looking for my honey. You're telling me this, you're telling me that. I say this is not for me.
What's most annoying about the Hotep's fascination with ancient Egypt is just how much actual African history they ignore. African history is far greater than just one civilization on the Nile. To name a few, you have the Mali Empire, Benin, the Zulus, the Ashanti, the Congo kingdoms, and the Dahomey. And that's just within a period of 400 years and a few hundred square miles of land. After all, we're talking about the birthplace of civilization, where society, science, and culture was developed for thousands upon thousands of years before the scramble for Africa in the 1880s. There's no need to mythologize the African continent when there's already so much there to learn and a lot more to discover. This sort of mythologizing based on ethnicity is not too dissimilar to the Aryan mythology propagated by Europeans through the 19th and 20th centuries. How did this mythology go? Well, back then, as they say, they were a race of superhuman conquerors whose science was more advanced than anything else. And then the Jews destroyed them. Yeah. One can see why this sort of reasoning is actually pretty dangerous.
The media is controlled by them, and their strategy is divide and conquer. As long as they can keep us fighting, they can always present themselves as the solution and profit. Hotep and Alt-Right are not fighting, so guess who's hip to the game?
When we create and breed nationalist or pseudo-nationalist myths about ourselves, it leads to lack of critical thinking, but also dehumanization of others.
If you're not of African descent, you are 96% human being only and 4% Neanderthal. Look it up, scientific fact. Only African people or people of African descent or lineage are 100% human beings. This is a scientific genetic fact. Look it up. Now, whoa, where does the difference come in? Because black people, we are the true human beings. We are a true human species. All other races, as you want to call it, have a lineage of Neanderthal, being genetic defects. A white person can literally catch cancer from a black person who is conscious because our bodies emit the same radiation as the sun because we are just a condensed form of sunlight. Because I'm emitting a certain level of radiation which is actually killing them on a substellar level. So a white person for too long cannot even physically survive around an intelligent black person.
And this shit is in their blood. So I'm asking your silly ass, with all the dumb shit that you talking, we don't care about nothing. The sisters doesn't want to know is you fucking crackers. Because if you fucking crackers, you got some of this nasty shit in you. We don't want to hear nothing else. Come on with it. Now we talk about the devil. Some people say the devil don't exist. See? But there's attributes in the devil. He got that goat head. Huh? Keep it moving. Huh? Ain't that one of them Khazars? Ain't that one of them Jews?
I don't know how many times I've heard Hoteps just go on and on and on about how homosexuality was not unique to the black condition until the white man bred it into us. And the reason why the white man bred it into us is so they could make black men effeminate. Like, that is Dr. Umar Johnson's central thesis.
Planned Parenthood International, the same Planned Parenthood that is giving black women abortions all across America, okay, is also the same Planned Parenthood that also contributed to the brainstorming and think tanking that went into using homosexuality as a population control strategy in the black community. And in 1972, the Rockefeller World Population Council, with influence, with some coaching by Planned Parenthood International, decided that it would be best if homosexuality would no longer be treated as an abnormal condition and that it be propagated in the black community as a healthy lifestyle choice. You have homosexual supremacy, which is the coming age of social order in the black community, where any black person, particularly black men, in order for you to be successful as an entrepreneur, as an athlete, as an entertainer, as a clergyman, okay, you're going to have to bend over and have sexual relations with a homosexual male to prove that you are still the white man's bitch.
To promote certain values, they will look for somebody and scapegoat in order to make a demon, in order for us to feel better about ourselves or for them to feel better about themselves. It's the oldest trick in the book. And then, of course, the misogyny. How many times do they call black women queens and goddesses, right? But you're not a queen or a goddess if you behave in a certain way that questions or makes men uncomfortable. So, for example, if you're out here twerking, next thing you know, you're not a goddess. Goddesses don't twerk. Goddesses don't wear bathing suits and everything. Even if they're upset at Serena Williams marrying some white guy, I have nothing to say when a black dude's marrying a white woman or going after a white woman. Like, okay, so what claim do you have?
Swirling does not apply to niggas, because that's not what swirling is. Swirling is that Serena shit. Swirling is our sisters running around with Salt Bay.
Everybody's mad at Serena. I used to leave her alone.
Swirling is revenge dating. You understand? Revenge porn. You're not just getting with homie because you did the research on Europeans in the conscious community and it showed you who they were, it showed you who you were, so you probably like, fuck that. I'm going to dominate. So I'm going to get me a white boy because not only does he treat me better, I learned that I breastfed them when they were babies as a mammy. I learned that they're easier to manipulate, they're easier to deal with, they're easier to talk to. Whatever the hell is the reasoning behind this mass exodus that we're beginning to see with our sisters.
That's generally who they are. I mean, just a bunch of pseudo-nationalists, pseudo-historical, ahistorical, really, conspiracy theorists, misogynists, homophobic, anti-Semites. It's not too indifferent from the alt-right, as I call them. So, funny, but yeah.
And show you, yeah, I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you, yeah, I'm gonna show you. Egypt was a black land. Yeah, time Mary. Egypt was a black land. King Tut was a black man. All right. How'd I do?